Hi, as everyone is still jumping on, we'll just go ahead and get started and get a couple of the housekeeping things out of the way. Hi, welcome. My name is Karen. I am the Adult Program Coordinator here at the Downers Grove Library. Thank you for joining us today. A couple of things. The program is being recorded, so I will send the link out to everyone probably Monday is when it will be ready to go. Our program today actually deals with two topics. So we will pause and have a Q&A after the two topics. I'm sorry. If you look down at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. So you can just add your questions there as we go, and we will get to them at the end of each of the two presentations. A couple of other things. On April 12th, for Money Smart Month, we're also having a virtual presentation of preventing financial elder abuse. That's at 1 p.m. April 12th. And then on April 19th, Finances 101 at 7 p.m. has also been switched to a virtual program. And so I am pleased to welcome Joe Giambardino from the Citizens Utility Board. He is the sorry, I stutter. Bear with me. Joe is the Sustainable Communities Liaison for CUB, and I'm just going to turn it over to him. Joe, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. Good morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Joe Giambardino. My job title, kind of a mouthful, Sustainable Communities Liaison, which I know is a lot. Suffice it to say that I'm a member of CUB's outreach team, which I'll talk to you all a little bit more about in just a second here. But again, it's so great to be here. I'm really excited, and I want to thank Downers Grove Public Library and thank Karen in particular. We've been working behind the scenes to make sure that everything's set up and ready to go for today. I'm looking forward to a great presentation. So I'm going to share my screen, and let's see if this works. You never know. Might be a little bit trippy just for a second, so bear with me. All right, and maybe Karen, if you can just click on and let me know, are you seeing my screen? Is everything looking as it should look?
Yes, I am seeing your screen. It looks how it should look.
Awesome, thank you so much, appreciate it. I never know, I definitely have had webinars in the past where I was 10 minutes in and someone finally timidly in the chat put, your screen, your slides haven't moved. And that was very embarrassing for me. So always like to double and triple check that things are working on the technology side of things. But without further ado, here we are. Again, my name is Joe Giambardino from Citizens Utility Board, or CUB. And today we're going to be talking about two distinct topics. The first one is kind of cutting your TV costs and navigating the world of TV and cable. The next one is reducing robocalls. And so again, we'll have two Q&A portions, so I'll make sure to answer everybody's questions. You can put them in the Q&A if that's easiest. We also, I think there's the chat section is open, so you can just make sure to get your questions in there and we'll answer any and all of them that people have here today. So the moment of truth, let's see. Ooh. Awesome, so Karen, again, just to confirm, did that switch over to the first or to a next slide?
It did, yes. You're good.
Awesome. All right, thank you. So yeah, we should be good to go then. A little bit, just very briefly about us, Citizens Utility Board, or CUB, and what we do. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan consumer advocacy group And ultimately, what we attempt to do here on a statewide level in Illinois is to advocate for affordable energy and sustainable policies, and to be here for you or us as Illinois utility consumers. And so we do that with really a three-pronged approach. The first of which is representing utility ratepayers with our legal team. So we do have a dedicated team of lawyers. They work primarily in front of the Illinois Commerce Commission, which is our state's regulatory body for all things energy and utilities. And so they're out there every day fighting on our behalves to make sure that the utility companies aren't taking advantage of us, aren't raising their rates to extraordinarily high levels, just looking out for us, so to speak. The second way we work is through the hotline. So you can see the fourth bullet point there. There's a number, it's 800-669-5556. That is the CUB free hotline. If you call on weekdays, anytime between 9 and 4, a real live person, one of our advocates, is going to pick up that phone and walk you through anything that you want to know. So that includes what we're going to cover today, but really any questions or concerns about any of your bills, from electric to gas to telecoms, internet, phone, you name it, we'll take care of it. So make sure you're calling that hotline and then spreading the word about that number. It'll appear on various slides throughout the course of this presentation. And then finally, the last part of our approach is by doing events like this, conducting consumer education. So as I mentioned, I'm part of our outreach team. There are currently 8 of us. Pre-pandemic, we were conducting over 500 events statewide per year. So we are traveling all over the states, or all over the state, excuse me. Again, making sure that people understand their rights and are able to navigate these oftentimes complex issues. And so this very quickly is just a little comic, right? A little representation of how we like to see ourselves as CUB. So there we are, kind of keeping the utility companies in check, making sure that they aren't doing anything that they're not supposed to be doing. We're the little CUB, little bear, making sure that they're following the rules, so to speak. I always love to show that in my slideshow too. So let's get down to it. What are my TV choices? So a lot of people, when they come and interact with those of us who are advocates and part of the outreach team at CUB, they want to know exactly what their options are overall when it comes to navigating cable and TV at large. And we at CUB like to say that fundamentally, you really have 3 choices when it comes to what you can do with your cable or your TV bills. The first one is what we call shaving. So shaving refers to keeping your current kind of cable package, but lowering that bill by cutting out the bits and pieces that you don't regularly take advantage of or use. The next option is cutting entirely. So that refers to completely saying goodbye to your traditional TV cable and switching to one of the many alternatives that I'm going to be covering here in this presentation today. The last one is what we call stacking. Stacking refers to keeping your cable service, but supplementing it with different options. So it's possible that with stacking, you might do a little bit of shaving first, and then adding on additional services to kind of meet your TV and your cable needs, so to speak. Those are really the 3 options, fundamental options that we have when it comes to navigating our TV and our cable bills. Just to establish a little bit more kind of what the TV market looks like, we have 5 real choices when it comes to how we receive any of the TV that we want to be watching or seeing. The first is over-the-air TV. So that's traditional antenna on top of your house, so to speak. The next is cable. After that, we have satellite like Dish Network or DirecTV. And then more recent, the last 2 are kind of more recent phenomena, so to speak. And those are streaming video libraries. So you can see Netflix is a prime example. There are seemingly hundreds of these types of streaming services nowadays, but I'd say Netflix is hands down the most well-known. And then there are these streaming options plus live TV. So you actually have the best of both worlds, where you're able to access movies and TV shows, but also watch live, maybe news, for instance, as it comes in. I do apologize if you're hearing a background noise. That's my dog attempting to get into the office here. So he's scratching at the door. So my apologies if you're hearing that. So to get things started, we believe that it's important to begin by asking yourself some rather fundamental questions. This is just going to be a brief list of some of those questions to get you thinking through what your wants and needs are when it comes to your TV diet. The first one is probably the most obvious. What channels or shows do you and your family want or need, right? So what is it that you're watching on a daily basis? Again, it can be anything from news to maybe you're big cinephiles and you love watching a movie each evening. But what exactly is it that you want and that you need in your home and that you know you're going to be watching on a very consistent basis? Next, do you need live TV at all? So again, live TV is really referencing the classic would be just the 24-hour news cycle, so to speak. So are you watching NBC or Fox or ABC or CBS? Do you need live TV at all, or can you really watch everything that you enjoy watching after the fact? Do you need premium channels? So we're going to discuss this in a little bit, but one of the classic ways that many of these companies try to nickel and dime us is by having us pay for premium channels like Stars or HBO. There are, again, kind of various options. Do you need those? Are you actually utilizing those and watching the shows or the movies or whatever might be on those channels? Do different people in your home need to watch different shows at the same time? So this gets a little bit into the technology side of things. There's going to be another question coming up in a second here about DVRs. Do you like to record, rewind, fast forward? So thinking through kind of the technology and the technological background and materials that you might need. And then consider your lifestyle. So do your schedules allow you to watch shows as they air? Again, this has to do with kind of fast forwarding, rewinding, and pausing. Are you able to sit down and in the moment watch the particular, the PBS NewsHour if that's what you enjoy watching? Does your lifestyle allow for that? These are all really important questions. Ooh, sorry, just skipped ahead there. All really important questions to begin asking, to think through again how you can begin to navigate the different options that you might have. And so steps to cutting. So we're gonna kind of skip the shaving part for a second, and we're gonna jump right into, if you have begun to think through these questions and you think you might really truly want to do away with your traditional cable bill, there are some important steps and additional considerations that we start to point out. The first one, and this is something that we talk about at Cub writ large with really all utilities, is looking at your current bill. So a lot of us are guilty at simply, when we receive a bill, again, be it electric or gas or internet, TV, we simply look at how much we have to pay and we write the check and we move on with our lives. We at Cub say that being a truly informed consumer means reading and understanding the lines, the ins and outs of your bill. So before you start any of this, you can ask those fundamental questions, but begin by looking at your bill and truly understanding exactly what it is you're being charged that you can either get rid of entirely or that you think is a necessary charge, so to speak, on that bill. Can you cut on the equipment portion? So again, this goes back to kind of the DVR I was talking about earlier. How many cable boxes do you have or do you want or need? Do you have a DVR? And then when we get to streaming, we're going to talk about internet just for a second. But for those of you who are Xfinity consumers, lots of people rent their modem and router for their Wi-Fi. And that's anywhere from a $13 to an $18 charge per month. When in reality, you can buy that modem and router up front and avoid that monthly cost, that monthly charge. So think through the equipment. What is it that you might not need that you can begin to cut out of the bill as well? And then, as I just mentioned, buying your own modem and router, because internet is really important for particularly the last two of those 5 categories of TV watching that I pointed out earlier. Continuing on. So going incognito, this is always a really interesting little tidbit we like to talk about. We think that doing your homework is really crucial when it comes to navigating this complex world. And it starts by simply Google searching what companies are available in your area, checking out what plans they have. And again, this goes for internet or for cell phone or for your cable. And we always recommend doing so incognito. And what that means is, for those of you who use Google Chrome to surf the web, if you go up to the top right-hand portion, there are going to be 3 dots that appear on kind of the window of Google Chrome there. If you click on those 3 dots, you should see something to the effect of create a new incognito window, or create a new incognito tab. When you go incognito, what's occurring is that companies, when you visit their websites, are unable to track your data quite as well as they do when you're surfing the web just with a traditional normal window or tab. And this goes for anything, for Google Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, Firefox, whatever you use to kind of surf the web. So by going incognito, you're avoiding, or you're making sure that those companies aren't able to track your computer quite so well. And the reason why that's important is because, let's have an example here. Maybe you're shopping around and you go onto AT&T's website and you see that they're offering an internet plan for $60 a month. And then you quit out of your computer and you go on doing stuff for the rest of the day, and you come back later that evening and you go back onto AT&T's site. If you are not incognito, they're able to track and see that your computer has visited the website again that second time, and they will sometimes increase those prices in that interim just to make sure that they're maximizing their profits in the end. So going incognito kind of ensures that that can't happen while you're doing your homework or doing your research. So check the competition's deals. Bundling and not bundling, and being willing to lock in are also really important too. So again, going incognito kind of refers to doing your homework, checking all of the options that might be available to you. And then once you find something that you think is actually going to work and you're starting to negotiate, you're beginning that process, think about whether or not you can bundle some of your services, so your cable and your Wi-Fi and your cell phone, or if it's better to just purchase them a la carte, so to speak, one by one. And then don't be afraid, we say, to lock into contracts that might be 2-3 years, especially if you own the space or you're going to be renting long term. Sometimes you can get a nice kind of price break or price cut if you're willing to do a contract in a couple of years. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about this again in a few slides, but if you're actually starting to negotiate by speaking to a customer service representative, being polite and confident, which again should go without saying, but we always like to just reiterate this point. Don't be afraid to ask, can you do better? What can you do to sweeten the deal, so to speak? Can you offer me premium channels that you might want or need for free for the first 6 months or for the first year if you're locking into a longer term contract? And then if you're not getting anywhere with that first person who picked up the phone, don't be afraid to request the cancellation or the retention departments. So that first person to pick up the phone traditionally is just a normal, in quotes, normal customer service representative. There are whole other departments though that are designed to keep you as a consumer. And so these people are trained and have the ability sometimes to negotiate a better deal when they know that you have made it to them and that you are very serious about making sure that you receive a quality service from them overall. Oh yes, and then take notes. Always take notes. I'm imagining some of you might be taking notes right now, which is fantastic, but always take notes that you have some sort of record and can go back and revisit them if you're having to do repeated calls with the company. So as I talked about a little while ago, we at Cub think that the first step for really understanding any of your utility bills and being able to navigate this world is by understanding the bill itself. And so we like to just go over an example of an Xfinity bill with people here on these presentations, just to walk through a little bit better line by line what you might expect to see on a traditional cable bill. Before we do that though, there are some key charges to consider. Every cable bill is going to be different. That's what makes this presentation a little bit challenging, is that lots of times there aren't definitive answers to people's questions. It's really a matter of, it's a subjective matter. It's all about what you want and what you need within your house. But on the right-hand side of the screen here, you can see some kind of classic key charges that we see on a lot of people's bills. So you can read for yourselves. There's DVR service, adapters, sports fees, maintenance fees, adding kind of bells and whistles to your internet service, modem and router, rental charges. These are all charges that could appear on your bill depending on what company you're with, what kind of contract you're locked into, et cetera. But they're all something to consider and to understand that they might appear on your bill as you're looking through it. So let's go right into just this example of an Xfinity bill, which I'm sure lots of us are already familiar with. So you can see there's some kind of circles that are numbered here. Towards the top of the first page, you can see 1, 2, and 3. That's the most obvious information. So account numbers, billing dates, the service period, et cetera, which is great to know, but we certainly want to get into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, and that is contained within Circle 4 and then on the next slide here. Circle 4 is your bill at a glance. And so a lot of us as consumers are guilty of looking at this portion, your bill at a glance, again, looking at how much we have to actually pay and then paying the bill and moving on with our lives. Your bill at a glance does at least break down for you what the taxes and fees are versus what your kind of full monthly charges may be. But we don't think that that is the portion that we should be focusing on because it's not clearly outlining exactly what it is that you're paying for and that's on your bill. And so that's why we need to go to the next slide here, is to begin looking at a line by line kind of itemized view of what is popping up on our bills. So circle 5 there is obviously that's the portion that you rip off if you're going to write a check and send it in. So another consideration that might be, it's probably on page 1 of your bill, but it's possible it's on the top of page 2 of the bill. But really, we want to move down to number 6 there because that's, again, the meat and potatoes of this entire bill. Those are the regular monthly charges. That's the portion that we really hone in on when we're looking at people's utility bills. That's what's telling us exactly what you're paying for. And so in this specific example, the consumer is paying for a package called the X1 Preferred Double Play package, which is $114. And you can see it says X1 Preferred Double Play in bold. And right underneath there, it's explaining a little bit more about what that bundle includes. So it says digital preferred, it says stars, which is a premium channel, stream picks, a technology fee, TV box, and then blast internet. So that is going to outline, that first box right there is going to outline exactly what it is that is in your package itself. Now you notice that right below there, it says add-ons, and this particular consumer was paying $15 a month for HBO. So that's what I was referring to earlier when talking about premium channels, is if you are not an HBO fan or you've never watched HBO in your life and you see it on your bill, why should you be paying $15 a month for a service that you're never using? That's something to negotiate and to consider when you begin to contact the company to look into your cable bill a little bit more. Below the add-ons, we have the equipment and services. And so you can see if you go directly down to the third part of that list, there's the internet and voice equipment rental. That's the fee that I was referring to earlier, $13 a month just for the modem and router. That can be avoided by simply purchasing the modem and router up front for anywhere from $75 to $150, depending on the bells and whistles you're looking for. And then you never have to pay that $13 a month, right? You're without that charge in perpetuity, which is fantastic. Finally, underneath, there's the mobile services, which we don't get too much into. And then there's the other charges portion. You can see there's a broadcast TV fee and a regional sports fee. The regional sports fee is a very contentious part of Xfinity bills. I have heard in rare instances of people managing to negotiate their way out of that regional sports fee because they aren't sports people, they aren't fans, they never watch any type of sports. 9 times out of 10 though, even more than that, more like 98 or 99% of the time, Xfinity is going to force you to pay that regional sports fee. But if you're looking for a good fight, you can certainly try to get out of that fee when you're negotiating with the company too. So again, each bill is going to really vary, or it's going to depend very much, but you can see that number 6 there where it starts with regular monthly charges, that's really the portion of the bill that you should be honing in on each time that you receive it. Finally, there's number 7, which is on the right-hand side of the screen there. That's the additional information portion. Again, as consumers, I was guilty of this in the past. We never bothered to look at those notes, but we always recommend that you just take a quick peek at that portion of the bill, the additional information, because this is how the company is communicating with you. So it's quite possible that contained within that section of the bill, they might be telling you that the X1 Preferred Double Play package next year is going to increase in price by $10. And so all of a sudden when that appears on your bill and you start to argue or negotiate with them over the phone, they'll say, well, it was in the additional information portion for months in advance. So make sure you're just taking a quick peek and understanding what they're trying to communicate, the company is trying to communicate to you as a consumer. So now you've thought a little bit more about your wants and needs on the TV side of things. You've looked through your bill and you're ready to make that phone call. I know I've touched upon a couple of things already, but some extra kind of tips and tricks we like to give people here. The first one seems pretty obvious, but again, lots of people don't necessarily do this. Make sure that your paperwork is ready. So make sure you have the account details and information. Make sure it's the most up-to-date bill and that you, again, understand line by line exactly what you're seeing so that you can better negotiate once you get on the phone. Next one is call at the right time. So I love giving people this little insider trick, so to speak. We at Cub tend to recommend when you are going to be calling any utility company, be it your cable company or ComEd or Nicor Gas, whatever company it might be, we always recommend making that call sometime between maybe 10 and 11:30 in the morning. There's a reason why we recommend that time. The reason is that most of the customer service representatives at that time of day have had their coffee, so they're caffeinated, they're awake, they're alert, they're ready to go, but they haven't been screamed at all day by upset consumers. So they tend to be in a better mood at that time of day because they are well caffeinated and they're still happy because they haven't been yelled at the whole day. So that's our little insider tip or trick we always like to tell people is try to call sometime between 10 and 11:30 in the morning because that seems to be just ever so slightly more effective in those negotiations. And then again, be courteous, goes without saying. I know it can be very frustrating to have to negotiate with companies, but it's not doing anybody any favors to be nasty to a customer service rep. And be thorough. So again, this goes back to making sure you're understanding each and every detail on that bill. If you're looking to complain, you can ask for permission to record the call. So that is within your rights as a consumer. The key being that you must ask that permission first. You can't simply record a call without the permission of the company, but there should be no reason why on your end you can't record things too for future reference. Don't be afraid to go higher if needed. So again, this really refers to the retention department. If that first person you've been talking to isn't helping you, don't be afraid to say, look, I need to talk to your cancellation or your retention department because I don't think these negotiations are really going anywhere. Summarize. That really refers to when you're beginning the conversation, making sure that you have a well-packaged message about exactly what it is that you're looking for to get out of this conversation in the end. And then get social. Don't be afraid to call these companies out on social media. If you have a Facebook, if you have Twitter, if you just want to write a Google review or a Yelp review, companies hate being called out repeatedly in public like that. So we always like to say, don't be afraid to get online. And if you're dissatisfied with how things have been going, don't be afraid to call those companies out on what they're doing. So with all of those tips and tricks in mind, the next kind of major fundamental question is cable still good for you? So traditional cable. And the beauty is that if not, there are a wide variety of alternatives that exist out there. And I know I talked about them in maybe the third or fourth slide of the presentation, but we're going to dive in a little bit more in depth here to make sure that we better understand exactly what those other options are. And so we like to start by talking about digital antennas or antennae. Sorry, I had to skip a slide there. What is a digital antenna? Well, digital antenna functions in pretty much the exact same way as a traditional antenna, but it's a much more kind of tightly packaged and small version. And the way it works is it is capturing any TV signal from your local area effectively. And so a digital antenna is a fantastic way to avoid cable service really altogether. And it serves as a standalone TV service because it's going to capture all of that great local TV, all those great local stations without having to subscribe to any type of cable. We'll just hook up to your TV and you'll be good to go. There is one consideration, as the slide says, it gets great local channels. There can be a little bit of lag, and if there's pretty extreme weather, sometimes you might not have the best service either. But for those of you who might have Dish, for example, it's kind of the same thing when it comes to satellite TV. So that's not necessarily a huge barrier, so to speak. So what do you need to know about digital antennae? Well, the first thing we say is make sure that it's a good fit for you and see what channels are available and what strength you would receive those channels at. So there are 3 websites here on the screen. The first one is actually from the federal government, from the FCC. And then there are 2 kind of third-party websites. And what you can do on these sites is type in your address and your zip code, and it will give you a list of all of the TV kind of channels that should be able to reach your home and at what strength. If it's going to be kind of a good quality signal where you shouldn't have to worry about how good the picture or the image is, or if it's something that will rather faintly hit your antenna and might not be a very reliable channel through that method, right, through the antenna itself. So always take that first step, do that homework, make sure you're understanding what you're going to be able to receive within the home. Next, make sure you have the right TV So that's very important. Oh, excuse me. Some of these antennae might require a digital tuner. Uh, we, I would say, if your TV is anywhere from 10 years or younger, it should be set up to have a digital antenna plugged right into it. Lots of them use what's called an HDMI cord or an HDMI hookup. In a few slides from now, there will be a picture of what that HDMI looks like. And so in the vast majority of instances, it shouldn't really be an issue. You should be set to go if you have at least a slightly newer TV. But again, ultimately, if you decide to go shopping and go for a digital antenna, I would say go to Best Buy or go to your local electronics store, and they should be able to walk you through what hookups you might need in the TV based off of what tuner you have and what TV you have. Next is making sure you have the right antenna. So there are a wide variety, number of types of these digital antennae. There's omnidirectional and directional. So that refers to, is it going to be capturing the signals from every direction or from simply the direction that you're pointing the antenna? So most likely, for those of you who are in Downers Grove, be pointing east towards the city of Chicago. So do you want something that picks up from 360, or do you want one that picks up exclusively from one direction? Amplified and non-amplified refers to how the strength of signals that they are able to collect and to pick up and to bring to you. So I would say for the most part, people tend to go for the amplified ones just because it might bring in an additional 2 to 5 channels on the antenna overall. And then indoor versus outdoor. So I can say kind of anecdotally, I have a digital antenna. I rent an apartment in the city and I have an indoor antenna. It's simply stuck up on a wall and it picks up anything and everything I could possibly need. It picks up all the local news. I have WGN, CBS, ABC, NBC. And then I also get the Bears. I'm a big sports guy, so I can watch the Bears on my digital antenna, and it works very effectively. It's possible, though, especially for a lot of people who live out here in the burbs, that an outdoor digital antenna is the better way to go. So again, thinking through what might work best for you based off of where you are, and if you're getting a direct omnidirectional versus a directional, amplified versus non-amplified. And then there's the price. Everyone wants to know the price of these digital antennae. It varies dramatically, anywhere from $10 to $200, depending on, again, the directionality, the amplification, if it's indoor, if it's outdoor. There are a wide variety of types. And so there is no simple answer as far as how expensive or inexpensive it might be. It really kind of depends on what you need and what's the kind of setup of your house is, so to speak. I will just pause and say, I do see there are questions coming in. Again, that's fantastic. I'll make sure to answer them as soon as I finish this portion here, but keep them coming, please do. So after digital antennae, we also have streaming. And so there you can see there's the example of the HDMI cable. That's the plugin that lots of streaming services and also some digital antennae use to connect to your TV. But when we talk about streaming, streaming is the ability to watch or to receive programming using internet, so using your Wi-Fi. And this is a kind of second option that you can use to supplement a digital antenna. You can use entirely on its own, or you can couple with your cable bill if you want to, depending on what you need. But with streaming, what do I need to stream? People tend to ask us a lot. You need internet, and you need good quality internet that's decently fast and decently reliable. Again, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. I think the vast majority of us have pretty solid internet these days. You need a smart TV. So again, most TVs that are 5 to 8 years old or younger tend to just be smart TVs. So you need one of those, or if you don't have one of those, you need some sort of equipment that has these HDMI capabilities. So that has the cord that you can see here and the plug-in to go in on the other side of the TV. So if you have those, I guess, technically 2 things, internet and either a smart TV or an HDMI equipped device, then you should be able to access all the different types of streaming programs that exist out there. So these are some example of the most common streaming devices that we run into. I'm sure you've heard of some of these before. There's Roku, which is at the top left. You can see the picture of it there. Apple TV and the Amazon Fire Stick. And so they all work in fundamentally the same way, which is where you're plugging. You can see that little, it looks almost like a USB. You plug that into your television, and that is able to capture the internet signal and allow you to navigate and purchase various streaming services. So again, think about Netflix or Hulu or Prime Video. It allows you to access those streaming services through your television. So some of the pros and cons of these services overall, they tend to have lower subscription costs. They offer thousands upon thousands of various choices from contemporary movies and television to classics. You can customize your programming quite a bit more when it comes to streaming, as you can pick and choose which services work best for you based on your needs. And then they're very convenient to sign up. I know for Netflix, it takes 5 to 8 minutes, and you have an account and you're set up and you can access the thousands of different shows and movies they have on there. Some of the cons, as I mentioned, it does require high-speed internet, so good quality, solid internet within your home. It also requires some sort of smart TV or some sort of streaming device that plugs into the TV. They can add up. So if you purchase a wide variety or a large number of streaming services, that can eventually surpass the price of your cable bill. And then they do lack live content. So in some instances, you can't access maybe news in the moment, so to speak. There are pros and cons to all these things. Subscription services or streaming services can be fantastic, but again, there is a limit at some point depending on your wants and needs. There are also a wide variety of free viewing options that you can use on your smart TV or through your streaming device, or you can access some of them just on your computer if you just want to watch TV or movies on your computer. This is a non-exhaustive list of many of those options. I can say again, kind of anecdotally, I've used Pluto before, which is the second bullet point there. It's great. They have a wide variety of channels, mostly movies. The caveat being they make their money through commercials. So if you're going to watch a movie, know that there are going to be commercial breaks throughout the course of that movie. So it's free, which is fantastic, but you pay that price, so to speak, by having a commercial break right at the peak moment of the movie, so to speak. So these are just, again, some of the options that you have to access either with your computer or by using streaming devices that I've talked about previously. And then finally, we have streaming services that are cable replacement services. So these allow you access to movies and to television, but they also allow you to get to access live TV. So in the moment, so again, news, for instance. They can cost anywhere from $20 to $135 a month. It really varies, really depends on what service you're looking into. But again, they kind of bring together the best of both worlds because you can access live content on the air as it's going on, but you can also access a lot of, again, anything from movies to classic TV shows, contemporary TV shows, kind of runs the whole gamut, so to speak. And these are just a few examples here of some of those streaming and live TV services that do that combining. AT&T has a couple of different options. There's AT&T TV, AT&T TV, that's a lot of T's now. Hulu does a live TV option, Sling, YouTube now does TV. Everyone's getting into this because, again, it's that perfect combination of being able to access your movies with your live content simultaneously, which is really, really nice. And so just to briefly think through all of these, again, this is just a little chart we've put together to begin thinking through what are the startup costs, what are some of the monthly costs or some of the yearly costs you might encounter, depending on which of these cable alternatives you're looking at. So you can see the first one as an example is the digital antenna or the HD antenna. You have a startup cost of, again, it depends, $10 to $200. And then that's it. There is no yearly cost. There is no monthly cost because you've purchased it and you can access all of the local channels you'll ever want to need. Streaming service, for instance, the third one down on the chart, there is no startup cost. You just have to sign up with, make an account, etc. And then in the case of Netflix, which is the example on this chart, $15 a month, and you have access to everything that you'll ever need from Netflix on the kind of the movies and TV side. So really, the most important thing is to think through the fact that there are sometimes startup costs, sometimes there are annual costs, and then sometimes there are monthly costs and considerations. And so it's about picking and choosing what works best for you while trying to save some money and not have to necessarily pay a cable bill on top of it. The long story short, as I come to the end of this portion of the presentation, is that you do have options. There are always a number of options available to us as consumers. The technology is just getting better and better, which makes it even easier to be able to access these various services. So again, it's about doing your homework, thinking through exactly what you want and need, and then beginning to navigate all of these wonderful options that are available to us to make sure that you have access to everything that you want and need within your own home very specifically. We at Cub are here to help you navigate that. So again, this is kind of a broad overview, but we are happy to answer more specific questions from people. You can call our hotline number, or you can reach out to any number of us who are on the Cub staff. We can talk to you one-on-one about what we're seeing on your bills, and again, get you set up with the services that you might need. So that's the end of kind of the TV and cable portion. So I'll go ahead and pause here. I see we've got a number of questions coming in, which is fantastic. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen during this so that I can be a little bit more engaging. So bear with me just for a moment. Awesome. All right. Let's see.
So the first one that actually came in is the one in the chat, which is basically if you know why there's no competition in Downers Grove in terms of cable providers. And it looks like Xfinity is also offered with the franchise fee.
Absolutely. So yeah, these companies are constantly, fighting with each other for us as consumers, right? They want all of us to sign up, and it kind of goes to exactly your point, Bob, that really they're willing to negotiate sometimes with municipal entities or with landlords to be the monopoly in that area, right? To be the sole provider of your cable needs. I don't know if there's too much we can do to fight against that. I mean, you can always talk to your elected officials, obviously let them know that you think competition is the name of the game and the better option. But beyond that, our hands tend to be pretty tied. I know in my case, again, I rent in the city. My building was an exclusively Xfinity building. I had no choices, which was really unfortunate. That being said, again, if depending on your needs, Bob, you might be able to cut that cable bill entirely and go with other options where you can access everything you need without having to pay Xfinity a dime. So it's a matter of looking into and understanding what your needs are. But unfortunately, I guess the long story short is there's only so much we can do. And I would say definitely go to your elected officials if you think this is unacceptable in the area.
Excellent, thanks. In the Q of A, kind of a two-part question. Xfinity has been going offline often with service interruptions. Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's an hour or more. We've actually had we've actually even had that impact us at the library.
Okay.
Question is, Comcast does not automatically provide correct for interrupted service. So what is an appropriate a reduction to ask for in relation to the length of the time?
That's a great question. That's the first time I've been asked that, believe it or not. It's a very valid, very good question. I would imagine that if you go in the fine print of your contract, and that goes for all of us, not just for the individual that asked this question, that somewhere in the contract, it says that they are allowed to have these service interruptions without any care really for how long they are, and that you are not entitled as a consumer to receive any type of payment or credit as a result of those. So the first thing I would do is explore the fine print of the bill a little bit more, or of the contract a little bit more, because it's quite possible that it says in there, that's just the way things go, and too bad you're not going to get credit for it. Now, if you're not seeing anything in the contract or on the bill, that's where it might get a little more challenging. I would want to actually hear from this individual. I will provide my information at the end of the presentation here. If you're noticing that you're not finding anything definitive about that, I would love for you to email me or call me, because that's something I could definitely actually talk to our lawyers about and just see if they've ever had any experiences navigating this too. But I definitely say again, begin by exploring the contract, because the vast majority of these companies have it written in somewhere that they're allowed to have interruptions that are necessary for, infrastructure upgrades, and that it doesn't necessarily, there isn't a cutoff point for the time, that they can do it as long as they need to make sure that everything is functioning as it needs to be functioning.
Excellent, thank you. Somebody else is asking if they can hardwire streaming devices for a better connection. You know that.
I'm not 100% sure what that means exactly. So if this individual could maybe clarify either in the chat or in the Q&A a little bit more for me. As far as the streaming services, the vast majority of the time, the way they work is, again, with that little device that plugs in, or if you have a smart TV, you can actually, the smart TV will be able to pull up an application just using the internet. So there isn't anything that you have to be kind of plugging in, so to speak. So as far as hardwiring it, I don't think there's really a way to do that. Oh, there, I think something just popped up there. So little device gets Wi-Fi. I mean, hardwire. That I'm not sure. Yeah, the only services I've ever heard of are the ones that just use your Wi-Fi, that just utilize your Wi-Fi. I suppose if you have if you have your modem and router sitting close to your smart TV, I don't see why you couldn't run a cable from the modem and router directly into the TV itself. But I think those little devices, your hands tend to be kind of tied, at least when it comes to Roku and Amazon, because it's just that little kind of USB sized stick that you plug in. I do know the Apple TV, though, does have a kind of a larger box to it. So it's possible, again, you can connect the modem and router into that box. I haven't ever seen one of them in person, though, so I can't 100% confirm that. So I would say it probably depends on, again, if you're using it smart TV or what type of device you're using that's plugged into the TV, if you might be able to connect it to your modem and router.
I can't promise anybody at the computer help desk at the library might be able to provide more information, but it's possible. So that might also be worth stopping in and just seeing if anybody knows. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so thanks. Another question, if you use streaming plus streaming service, how do you switch between them and how quick is it?
So again, my apologies. If this person can maybe clarify just a little bit what they mean by using streaming plus streaming services. Because the way streaming works is you stream through a streaming service, if that makes sense. So you purchase some sort of service that's called a streaming service that allows you to stream, to access those channels or those movies or whatever it is you're paying for. What I can tell you is, so for instance, I have a smart TV that has a bunch of different applications on it that are streaming services. So I have Netflix and Hulu and all those, and it's just a matter of clicking 2 buttons on my remote and I can switch between Netflix and Hulu, or I can switch from Netflix to my digital antenna and just watch live TV. So it's just a matter of clicking 1 or 2 buttons to be able to make that jump between the various options.
Yeah, so he did qualify switching between live TV and streaming, and it should be pretty much exactly what you just said.
Yep, there's oftentimes with smart TVs, there's just a home button. So you can click home and then you can use the arrows to click to live TV. So it's, you have 2-3 clicks and you should be able to switch between any and all of the options you're using.
Excellent. Thank you. Another person asks if CUB has a checklist or a flow chart that would guide consumers through the process of determining which of the alternative options would be the best replacement of cutting the cord.
So
I mean, one of those, if this, then this, if this, then this type of thing.
So I don't think we have anything that detailed. I will say this entire presentation is based off of a CUB cable guide, though. So if you visit our website, you can download or ask to receive a digital copy of that guide for free. So I would definitely encourage you to visit the website. Alternatively, at the very end of this presentation, there's going to be an email address at the bottom of it we offer a free service that's a utility bill clinic. And so if you send us copies of your bills, we will sit down with you one-on-one and we can walk you through any of these individual questions and concerns and make sure you get all the answers that you need. So I would say either download, go ahead and download that, the cable guide, and or reach out to us to get that one-on-one service. We offer it via Zoom, via phone. We can even send it by snail mail if that's what you'd like. So we can just kind of personalize things a little bit more during that one-on-one conversation there.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to actually put that in the chat, and I see request Cubs updated a cable guide. If I find the one that's actually the download, I will post it in the chat.
I think the way our communications team has it set up is that you have to put your email address. They want your email address. So, but I can definitely do some exploring too. And if I find something, Karen, I can email it to you after the fact and send it out.
Send it out. Perfect. Thank you. Have you heard anything about the quality of T-Mobile internet service, which is being offered for $50 a month?
I can't say I have, honestly. The vast majority of kind of internet consumers we deal with are either AT&T or Xfinity. So I unfortunately can't speak too much to it. I would say, again, a preliminary Google search is always super helpful. A lot of people write reviews about these various programs or offerings, and you might be able to glean a little bit of information right off the bat about, no, this is not a particularly good service, or yes, I've actually really enjoyed it. It's fast, it's reliable, it's great. So I would say do that preliminary search first.
Thank you. Is wireless 5G internet currently a good alternative in the Chicago area to traditional internet access via fiber or cable?
Cable. That's a good question. The rollout is still so new that I think it's kind of unclear at this point. If I had to guess, I would say that lots of times the way these programs are rolled out is the more affluent areas of the Chicago metro receive the best service and the service first. So it's probably going to depend on where exactly you live, as horrible as that is. But I think, again, ultimately, we haven't received too many calls one way or the other, at least on our hotline, because it is such a new rollout that it's too early to tell, quite honestly.
All right. Thanks. And then someone else asked that they get poor Wi-Fi in one of the rooms where they watch TV. It's difficult to stream from that a room, and a Wi-Fi extender doesn't seem to be working either.
Yeah, so most likely that's an issue with the modem and the router. So a lot of people don't understand that depending on the speed of internet that you're purchasing, there are different modems and routers that work better with that speed. So I would do a little bit of research into what modem and router you have and whether or not it's most compatible with the speed of internet that you're buying. It's possible that there's a little bit of a change you'll need to make on that end. And then nowadays, some Wi-Fi kind of modems and routers and the technology behind the scenes allows you to create two different kind of Wi-Fi networks, one of them in like 2G, one of them in 5G. And in some instances, one or the other will work better at kind of penetrating thick walls. So it's possible that the signal gets through the wall better in one of those two. So it's most likely a modem and router issue that I would start by, again, just Google searching to see what works best for the speed of internet that you have.
All right, thank you. It actually does make me think possibly a program on home networking could be very valuable.
Absolutely.
Go to that.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a few minutes. So how about if we segue to the other topic?
Absolutely.
So we stay close as we can within timeline.
Yes, I apologize. We are probably going to go over. I will not take offense if people have to log off, though. Trust me, that's this is a lot of information in the presentation, so it can be tough. So let me just good. Perfect. Okay. Are people seeing the telephone slide. Aaron, if you can maybe
Streaming services.
no. All right, okay, give me just a second. I'm so sorry. This is where things always get a bit more challenging. Refresh it here. All right, let me try this again.
There we go.
Awesome. So, and is that full screen now too?
It is not. It's not in presenter view. It's just how it would look on your laptop.
Why is it doing this? Okay, hold on. I'm so sorry, everybody. Give me just a second here. Okay, how about now? Is that going full screen?
Perfect. Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Yeah, again, my apologies. Technology, you never know. Well, great. Okay, let's rip through this here. So what is a robocall, right? That's another very common question we receive from people is what is a robocall and what can I do to kind of combat and lower the number of them that I'm receiving? Ultimately, a robocall is fundamentally a pre-recorded message from a computer-generated dialer. And so we'd like to start this presentation by explaining that there are legal and there are illegal robocalls, which a lot of people don't necessarily know, right? And so they ask us, well, aren't they all illegal? Well, not necessarily. Robocalls are illegal when they are sales calls, but they are legal when they are pre-recorded messages that have to do with things from healthcare. So lots of people receive, pharmacy robocalls, for instance. That's a legal form of robocall. Banks, phone carriers, debt collectors, politicians can do robocalls legally. And then informational calls. These are all legal forms of those pre-recorded messages that we're talking about. Now, naturally, our minds tend to jump to, when we hear the term robocall, to scam calls, right? And those are obviously very much illegal robocalls. But we'd like to, again, just establish right off the bat that there are a certain number of legal ways in which people can contact you with these pre-recorded messages. And even more surprisingly, we'd love to show this pie chart here. You can see that traditional scam robocalls that we always jump to right away only constitute about 44% of all robocalls by category in the United States. The entire rest of the pie chart there, those are all legal forms of calls, from telemarketing to alerts and reminders to different payment or rental reminders. These are all legal forms of or legal ways that people can contact you by automated message there. So that always tends to shock people, realizing that the tried and true scam call, so to speak, is only about 44% of all of the calls that are made from pre-recorded places. So hands down, the most common form of robocall today is what we call a spoofed call, right? So spoofing is the way they do this. And spoofing refers to when a robocaller uses an area code where you live or somebody's number that you recognize in order to get you to pick up the phone. And so initially, it really kind of began with exclusively the area code. So you'd receive a call from the same area code that your phone is tied to. Spoofing has become more and more complex nowadays. I actually have received spoofed scam calls from friends' numbers. So it appeared on my phone as one of my friends in my contact list, and it was a scam call. It was not that friend calling. So this is hands down the most common way that people are scammed nowadays, is because we're more likely to pick up the phone when we see that the call is coming from an area code that's close to ours, and obviously even more so when we think it's a friend on the other line, excuse me. And so we need to make sure that we're very careful when answering really any type of call in today's day and age. But before I talk just a tiny bit more about that, there are a few other very common types of scam calls that we receive. The first one is the tried and true IRS call. The IRS will never call you. They're going to communicate with you by mail. Health insurance calls, can you hear me calls, which I'm going to talk about just a little bit more too in just a second here, because that's something very important when it comes to scamming. And then there are electric and gas companies, which again will only communicate with you by snail mail, or calls coming in from outside of the United States, from different countries. So I know I've received calls where it's come up on my screen in Mandarin, and I don't know anyone who lives in China. So right off the bat, you kind of know that that's a scam call that's coming. So some of the basic fundamental tips here: don't answer any unknown numbers. So, I mean, a lot of us have kind of grown up answering the phone, and regardless of the number that's coming in, we pick it up. We would say if it's an unknown number, voicemail. If it's a family member, a friend, someone who truly needs to contact you, 99% of the time, they'll leave you a voicemail if it's something that's really important. If you do answer the robocall, excuse me, make sure you're hanging that up immediately and you're not calling it back. So I know there are some people on YouTube that have made their YouTube careers by calling scam callers back and scamming scam callers. That's very dangerous because they can get a hold of your information in various ways. So we do not recommend calling these numbers back. And if you do accidentally pick one up, make sure that you're clicking and hanging up right away. And the reason why is the following, especially again with the "can you hear me" calls. Lots of times these scammers are attempting to get a voice recording from you. And so that's why you should never be answering these calls at all with really any words, but especially with yeses or nos. You should never be answering yes or no, because what we've seen more recently with robocalls is they are recording your voice saying yes or saying no, and then they will use that voice recording to sign up for free credit cards or do whatever scamming they might be doing, and saying that they have your permission because they have your recorded voice saying yes or saying no. So that's why it's important to hang those calls up right away and to never answer any questions, but more specifically, never answer any yes/no questions that might be coming from the other line. So can they be stopped, right? That's the million-dollar question. Unfortunately, as you can kind of imagine, there is no silver bullet. They can't be entirely stopped. If there was a silver bullet, we wouldn't be here in this presentation today because everyone would just be doing it. There wouldn't be robocalls anymore. That being said, there are a number of ways that we can start to reduce the overall numbers, primarily through things like call blocking services. So let's start with landlines just for a second. So with traditional landlines, we have 3 different kind of tips that we recommend. The first one, again, and the one that we recommend first and foremost for any type of phone out there, is let it go to voicemail. The vast majority of the time, telemarketers or scammers aren't going to leave a voicemail for you. They're just going to call you. When nothing happens, they move on to the next number. And again, if it's someone that really needs to reach you, they will leave a voicemail for you, and you can simply call them back after the fact. There are also call blocking devices, such as blacklists or whitelists. The issue with those is they can be kind of hit and miss, and they tend to be quite expensive, anywhere from $70 to really $100, depending on the bells and whistles that you're paying for, so to speak. Again, for people who have traditional landlines, there is an AT&T Star 60 service. It's an additional $11 a month, but you can definitively block 10 numbers from your local area. So you can at least have, if you have the same number calling you every single day and you know it's a scam call, you can block that number on your landline permanently and not have to deal with it anymore. For digital phones like Uverse, Xfinity, all those good phone options, there are a number of different star codes. So that's going to depend on your service provider, which is why we don't have kind of a list here. But simply Google or visit your service provider or call them to find out which codes work in your area and for your phone. And again, lots of times they'll let you block up to 10, 15 numbers permanently. So that, again, super useful if you have the same number calling you at the same time every day and you know that it's a scam caller. Just get rid of those guys by using a star code or a call blocking service. Most of these can be activated from your online account. So you can see for AT&T Uverse there, they have a number that you can call, or you can simply search the call blocking or digital phone portions of their website. They're going to walk you through exactly how to set up call blocking so that in the future, if you do receive a scam call, you can hang it up and you can block that number and be done with it for forever, at least in theory. Comcast Xfinity, again, kind of the same situation. You can visit their website or simply give them a call, and they're going to walk you through step-by-step ways that you can start to reduce those overall numbers, so to speak. So managing on your smartphone. A lot of us have smartphones these days. Again, as I said, every single time, if it's an unknown number, don't pick it up. That's definitely the number one recommendation. I know it's really annoying. Trust me, I get scam calls all the time too, but let it go to voicemail. People will leave you voicemail if they need to. Check with the device manufacturer. So not the cell phone company that's offering you the service, but with the actual manufacturer. It's possible In some cases, they offer some sort of protection service that's already kind of on the software of your phone that you can take advantage of. Do not disturb, which I'm going to talk about for the iPhone in just a few slides here. And then the companies sometimes do offer call blocking similar to digital phones or to landline phones. And then there are a number of third-party apps that I will have up on the screen in a few slides as well. The caveat with call blocking services and apps, as I've already discussed, is the fact that lots of times they charge some sort of monthly fee in order to use their services. For the wireless companies, just for traditional call blocking, we have just the names of those services based on the company here. So AT&T is Call Protect, Sprint is Premium Caller ID, T-Mobile, they have kind of 3 different names for it: Scam ID, Scam Block, Name ID. It's all doing the same thing though. And then Verizon has what's called the call filter function. So you can visit the website of the service provider or give them a call to ask how you can set up these services from your cell phone, and they should be able to walk you through exactly how it works. These are just some of the third-party apps available. We've heard kind of anecdotally that they work decently well. Again, they at least reduce the number of spam calls or robocalls people are receiving. So you can see they have some pretty funny names. There's Hiya Caller, Nomo Robo, Robo Killer, True Caller, and Umail. I always feel so weird. They're very odd names. Do your due diligence on them. Make sure you're Googling them. See what people are saying in their reviews. If they think it's a worthwhile endeavor to purchase, have that monthly cost to reduce the overall number. I think in some cases, there are actually different tiers of service that you can receive. So you can pay additional amounts for an additional 15 numbers that you're able to block, as an example. So check them out and see if any of them work for you, and if you can identify a few where you might be able to hone in on specific services that you think work best in your case. So for those of us who have iPhones, there is a way to block all unknown numbers on your phone. And that is the key term there, is you are blocking all unknown numbers. So you go into the settings, you click on phone, and then you can just scroll down and you'll see there's silence unknown callers. And you can just flip that switch, so to speak. So again, the caveat is that when you do this, any number that is not in your contacts list is going to be blocked. So if you're someone who pretty consistently receives phone calls from any number of people, from contractors, or in my case, I receive phone calls from consumers all the time. This is not necessarily a great way to go, because I need to be able to pick that phone up and answer people's questions. But if you know that all of your family and all of your friends, anyone you ever speak to, is already in your contacts list on your iPhone, you can go ahead and use this function to block all of those unknown numbers from coming in. So one consideration for those of us, again, who work with iPhones here. Finally, the federal government attempted to roll out a response to this, and it's called the Do Not Call list. And so you can register your phone by either calling the number on screen there, 888-382-1222, or you can go to donotcall.gov. You should receive a confirmation email within 72 hours of completing your registration. We've heard that this service is kind of hit and miss. Again, it might help to reduce things at least a little bit. I don't think it's as powerful of a tool as people had hoped it would be, though. That being said, one of the cool features of the website is that once you have received your registration notice within that 72-hour window, from that point on, you can actually report spam numbers or robocall numbers. So if you're receiving a phone call from the same number at 1 p.m. every single day, you can go ahead and report that number on this list. And the federal government is putting together kind of a master list that I suppose maybe one day they'll be able to use to shut these numbers down and shut these scammers down. So a final consideration there is to get yourself on the federal government's Do Not Call list. It should help to, again, minimize the number of calls coming in, or slowly drop the number of calls you're receiving overall. And that's it. That's what I have for robocalls there. Again, anything I discussed today, be it the robocalls or the TV and cable options, we're happy to answer your questions about. You can call the Cub Consumer Hotline, which the number is right there on the screen, 800-669-5556, or you can reach out to me individually. So you see down below there, that's my personal information, my personal email address, and my phone number extension. Never hesitate to give me a call. I'm happy to walk you through anything and everything I've talked about. And then also, again, electric and gas is kind of our bread and butter. So if you have other utility questions, reach out to us. And as I was mentioning during the Q&A, the Q&A portion before this, at the very bottom of the screen, there is an email address. It's ubc@citizensutilityboard.org. You can send any and all of your utility bills to that email, and one of our counselors will reach out to you to set up a time that works best for an individual one-on-one secure, free consultation to go over any of the bills that you send. Again, we can do it on Zoom, we can do it over the phone, we can even send you just a hard copy of what we've seen on the bills. But don't be afraid to reach out to us and take advantage of all of these free services that we have to offer. So on that note, I'm done. I'll go ahead and leave this screen up just for a few moments more so that you can jot down any of that last information. And we can start the next Q&A portion here.
All right, so okay, so somebody said they cannot read your email because it's highlighted in blue. So if you can
okay.
the chat, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
And then I am going to handle the phone questions first. So the first one is can't they use your voicemail to record your voice to manipulate those voice?
I suppose they could, but the vast majority of the time, our voicemails tend to be something, I guess, more innocuous. We don't tend to be saying yes or no, which again, those are kind of the two key words that they're looking for out of our mouths. Also, the vast majority of these softwares are set up so that the minute they hit a voicemail, it just cuts the call and moves to the next number. It's all about speed and getting to as many numbers as you possibly can. So I guess in theory, yes, they could be recording the voicemail, but 9 times out of 10, the messages are not something that they could actually use necessarily. And they're just going to, again, the software is going to the computer's just going to move on to the next number when no one picks up the call.
Great, thank you. I have a couple of questions that might need clarifying. So the question is what about AT&T and no robo and no mo robo is free through AT&T landline? So I'm not really sure what the question is there.
I mean, I would suspect if it's a free offering from AT&T, I would say go for it. You know, there's really no harm in signing up for any of these programs, right? It's not like they're going to increase the number of robocalls that you receive. So I'd say if that's a free offering from AT&T, I'd absolutely go for it. Get yourself signed up and try to reduce the overall number of calls you're receiving.
Great, thank you. And then we have are there applicable standards for spam emails, and is there a single source approach to protect yourself from all unauthorized electronic intrusions, whether they be by phone or online?
Unfortunately, no. And I hate having to say that. There is no silver bullet for any of this stuff. There are just little tips and tricks and ways to begin reducing any type of unauthorized, communications that we have with these scammers. So I'm trying to think email wise. As of right now, arguably the easiest way to work with spam emails is to just manually block each email address that's coming in. So some people are willing to go ahead and do that because it can be a tall task, a tall order when you're receiving 15 spam emails a day. But some people think that that's worthwhile and it reduces the number of emails they're receiving, which is good. I also know obviously the vast majority of email providers have a spam filter that they're just trying to shoot or kick all your spam to in the first place, so you don't even have to see it. So I have Gmail for a personal email account, and I know I rarely get spam into my inbox. It just goes straight to a spam filter or a spam folder that I rarely look at. I'll delete it maybe once a month just to kind of refresh that. So unfortunately, yeah, there is no real way to stop that. I suppose, again, in theory, I suppose the only way would be to entirely disconnect from everything, but that's just not a feasible or viable option. So.
All right, well, we'll just give it just another minute to see if there's any more questions.
Absolutely. I'll leave that screen up too, just in case anyone wants to jot down the info.
All right, I think we're good. Well, thank you so much, Joe. This was extremely informative. I appreciate your time. Well, we have one more question. Is it a good idea to block text spam messages?
Totally. Absolutely. I'd say go for it. That's if it's going to block that number, which is great, right? That's one less number you have to deal with. And I know personally, it just feels good to block a number too. So I'd say go for it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Walk away.
So we're starting to get some thank yous from people. Yes, thank you very much. Extremely informative. As I said, I will be emailing the presentation out to people once it is ready to go. And it will also be posted on our virtual program page. So for an easy way to go back and reference some of the slides. So again, thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Absolutely. Take care. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good weekend.